Hello. Channel 1.
Hello, hello. Test.
Hello, this is Saroja.
Hi, Luca. Hi, Saroja. Can you guys hear me?
Hello, Hito, Saroja.
Hello, hi. Yeah.
Hello. Não tô ouvindo mais nada.
We cannot hear each other.
Hello. Test, test. Is it working? Yes. No. Now it's working. Now it's working. I can hear. Can you hear me?
I do.
Yes. All right. So we will get started in 2 minutes. Just waiting for attendance to arrive. Can we check if we have our 2 remote participants online? We have 2 remote participants. We have Hitul Gaur and Soraya Sundaram online. Can we check if our 2 remote participants, Ritul Gaur and Soraja Sundaram, are online? They are online. Fantastic. All right.
I can hear you well, yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent. All right. So I think we can get started. First of all, let me share a little bit of update on our agenda. This session was supposed to be moderated by the Oh yes, if we can also have the online participants on screen, that would be fantastic. So while we wait for the online participants to be put on screen, let me provide a little bit of update for our agenda. The session was meant to be moderated by the organizer of the session, Hannah Draper, that unfortunately had a last-minute impediment, so I will be taking over the moderation. My name is Luca Belli. I'm professor at FGV Law School, where I direct the Center for Technology and Society at FGV. I was supposed to be a speaker of this panel, but I will also moderate it together with me, Alexandre Barbosa, who is here with us in person, who is a researcher at the Weizenbaum Institute of the Berlin University of Arts. And with us online, we will have Saroja Sundaram, who is Executive Director of Citizen, Consumer and Civic Action Group, which is a 39-year-old civil society organization based in Chennai, India. And then we will have Ritul Gaur, who is Policy Advisor for the Digital Impact Alliance, DIAL. Now, to start our conversation, let me just provide a little bit of introduction to the topic, and then I will directly provide a little bit of insight from Brazil and India, and then I will pass the floor to my colleague and friend Alexandre, and then we will have in order Ritu and then Saroja. What are we speaking about when we speak about digital public infrastructure, or DPIs, that became a very hot topic since the G20 in India last year, where the Indian presidency did a very interesting job in bringing to the international floor this concept of DPIs that have been implemented, debated, and studied in India for almost a decade in the context of the India Stack, the digital transformation plan of India. And then they are spreading quite rapidly around the world with very good examples also from other countries, especially developing countries. We will see that Brazil has been not only experimenting but implementing with a certain success some of these DPIs. And so DPIs are digital systems that are interoperable. They are designed to be supposedly secure, and they are built on open standards, on open specifications, so that they allow the provisions of public services, but also of private services, through this infrastructure, this digital infrastructure that is public, right? But also we will see that this conception of public really depends, and it is not universally defined what is public. And the difference that I'm going to illustrate between India and Brazil actually provide a very good illustration of this. Brazil has become very well known in DPI debates for PIX. It's digital public infrastructure for payments. So usually there are three main categories of digital public infrastructures: digital IDs, digital payments, and personal data consent managers. India has been experimenting and implementing them for several years, all three of them, and actually is now in the process of implementing another one, the online digital network for commons, the digital network for online commerce, which is a sort of grand bazaar online built on a digital public infrastructure. So we will see that there are several types of the digital public infrastructure, but this specific workshop aims at discussing financial inclusion through DPIs. So the use of DPIs to build public infrastructure, digital public infrastructure for payments, right? And so here, my initial considerations that I'm blending with this introduction is that we really need to have a systemic approach to this to understand how they function. What are their benefits, but also what are their limits? And I think that the cases from Brazil and India illustrates very well. And I wrote a paper about this last year for the G20 in India, for the T20 actually. And we co-authored with Hannah Draper, the organizer of this session, a T20 policy brief this year on digital public infrastructure, also stressing that the digital public infrastructure, especially DPIs for payment, could be a very good example of good digital sovereignty. So of a country, but can also be not necessarily a country, could be also a regional or a municipal government, could even be a group of individuals understanding the technology they are using, developing it and regulating it in a way that is in the interest and put forward the interest, or at least should put forward the interest of the local community. Could be the municipal community. We have very good example in Brazil. For instance, the city where I live, Rio, has a very good digital public infrastructure for taxis. There is a competitor of Uber, which is a digital public infrastructure for taxis. So you can hail a taxi through a digital public infrastructure built by the municipality. But again, here we start to, if we want to have a systemic approach, we start to understand that what is the first obstacle. To use DPIs, you need meaningful connectivity. If you are not connected, you cannot use a DPI. And I'm speaking about meaningful connectivity, not mere connectivity, because there is a lot of examples, especially in the global south, of entire countries and population that are connected still today through zero rating mechanism. So not meaningful connectivity, but connected only through a very limited selection of apps that are sponsored, typically Meta family of apps, social media. In this case, it is even if you have the best possible DPI built by the government, people will not be able to access it. So the investment in it is thrown into the bin. And that is Brazil is a very good example of this, because 70% of the population that is now, or 80, that is now connected, almost 80 connected to the internet, only 20% of them, they have meaningful connectivity. And so when the PIX was launched during the pandemic, PIX, our digital public infrastructure for payment, was created by the Brazilian Central Bank, which is an organ that understands very well these dynamics. So during the pandemic, when everyone was sort of locked down, WhatsApp wanted to launch WhatsApp payments ahead of our digital public infrastructure for payments. And the Brazilian Central Bank suspended the launch of WhatsApp payments for 6 months because this would have created detrimental effect on privacy, data protection, competition, because having WhatsApp a sort of monopoly of connectivity, everyone in Brazil is connected through WhatsApp, but very few people are connected to the rest. So it would have meant, if WhatsApp payment had been launched before our system PIX, that everyone would have used WhatsApp payment, no one would have used PIX. So understanding meaningful connectivity is key, and I think this is why when India adopted net neutrality regulations in 2016, they prohibited zero rating. Every people, especially at IGF circle, was discussing this as a tool, as a measure for net neutrality, for freedom of expression, but actually it was a digital sovereignty measure adopted by India, because they acknowledged that if they had allowed the entire population to be connected to only to a certain specific set of apps rather than the full internet, no one would have ever used both locally developed apps and also digital public infrastructure developed in India. So meaningful connectivity is key. And then when we adopt it, we can also foster competition and increase enormously consumer welfare. And here we enter the core of today's discussion. Before PIX in Brazil, as in most other developing countries, online payments were only possible through Visa and MasterCard. So to foreign companies that charge between 3 and 5% per every transaction that happens. So the Brazilian consumer has had reverted into its pocket 3 to 5% Brazilian consumers and also sellers of goods or providers or services. They receive directly, thanks to this, 3 to 5% of what they pay for each transaction into their pockets. So and this money is reverted to the national economy. And few people understand that also Visa and MasterCard, over the past 10 years, they have become big data companies. So most of their income does not come from the 3 to 5%, but comes from the data, personal data that they are collected about consumers and what they buy and what and when, and the profiling of them and building of artificial intelligence out of this. So this, why am I saying this? Because the benefit is not only a direct benefit for the consumer PIX, it's also an enormous competition boost that the competition authority would never have been capable of doing. It broke the duopoly of Visa and MasterCard and put into the picture a very new, innovative solution that increased enormously consumer welfare and allowed everyone else in the field to build innovation on top of it. And this kind of competition measure would never have been possible through traditional regulation, antitrust authority analyzing the duopoly and sanctioning. That would not have been possible. So we have to understand also DPIs, and I think that in India this is very present narrative. DPIs as a tool of regulation. So not regulating by sanctioning, by creating a law, but regulating by creating an alternative. And this is a very powerful tool an aspect of DPIs. Of course, there are limits. And again, here I don't want to speak too much, but just to conclude, a very final point that I want to stress is that the Brazilian experience, in my perspective, has improved the Indian payment digital public infrastructure (UPI), because in India this has been built and is currently still managed by a non-for-profit organization, the National Payment Corporation of India, and being not a public entity as in Brazil, which is managed by the Brazilian Central Bank, is much less transparent and accountable. If you try to file a request to a freedom of access of information to a non-public entity, they will reply to you, "I'm sorry, sir, this is not a public entity, so we are not obliged to reply to you." So if I in Brazil, I ask to the Brazilian Central Bank to tell me which data about me do you have, with whom you are sharing them, what are your security measures, they are obliged to reply me. And if they don't reply, I can sue them because they're a public body and they have an obligation to be transparent and accountable. But if in India, an Indian consumer asks to the National Payment Corporation of India, tell me which data about me do you have and with whom do you share them, they can perfectly reply to you, we are sorry, sir, this is not a public body. We are not bound by law to reply to you. So it's very interesting to understand also the institutional context behind it. Of course, there is a rationale to have a non-for-profit building this. You can be suspicious of bureaucracies being very effective in building services. It's not really their cup of tea. So they might have problem, but it also represents risks. Now, not to speak too much, let me give directly the floor to my friend Alexandre Barbosa to have his insight, and then we can expand the conversation to our Indian friends.
Thank you, Luca. Hello, everyone, both online and offline, here present. Unfortunately, we don't have here Hannah, the one who organized the session, and also Jordan, representing Co-Develop. Co-Develop is one of the main organizations behind this recent advancements of DPI worldwide. I mean, not speaking from a governmental perspective, but also from private and philanthropic services sectors. I will speak mainly regarding PIX in the Brazilian scenario, also considering all the dimensions beyond the design and the regulatory aspects of payment systems. But I'd like to emphasize first as this quite recent, as Luca clearly expressed here, boom of DPIs led by the G20 discussions in India, followed by Brazil this year, and likely to take place at South African presidency that just started a few weeks ago. So representing this IBAs, the India, Brazil, and South Africa dialogues within this BRICS structure, kind of setting the scene for how DPIs are really taking place, especially in developing contexts. I think it's clear how DPI brings to the table the role of the state when we think of technology development. And as an academic here, I must emphasize that despite at the policy international level, there is this, Rito is going to speak about it probably, like this sort of consensus around these three major DPIs that Luca mentioned. It's worth highlighting the need to consider the physical and intangible material dimensions of infrastructure, always when we talk about digital public infrastructure. So where this data is being processed, who controls this data processing infrastructures, where they are located, and so on. Indeed, PIX succeeded. It enables payment 24/7, overcame debit cards and cash as the very first, the main payment method in Brazil a few weeks ago. Over 70% of the Brazilian population use PIX. It reached 10 days ago 250 million transactions in a single day, accounting for over 120 billion Brazilian reais. And it's worth mentioning that it is partially a result of a set of regulatory and policy measures within the National Security, the National Council for Monetary Council, that was kind of updating the financial system since the early 2010s. And I completely agree with Luca that it demonstrates that DPI can be a popular, and in Latin America perspective, a popular here is mainly linked to massive. So it's a massive, efficient, inclusive, and accessible alternative to private solutions, without raising concerns about market concentration and the implication the consumer rights and choices. And also regarding somehow to consumer rights, but more in a macro level, it's the Brazilian Central Bank, the institution who develops and regulates PIX, stated that in September in Brazil, the Bolsa Família beneficiaries, the very hello, yeah, the major Brazilian social protection cash transfers program, which is recognized worldwide. The Brazilian Bolsa Familia beneficiaries spent 3 billion reais, actually 3 million, sorry, billion indeed, in bets program softwares in August. So also thinking the extent to which these DPIs can enable better policies and also a better comprehension of how the economic and socio-economic development of the country is taking place. Additionally, I'm not going to deep on that, but it's also a convergent debate that we are taking place in FGV with Luca within the CyberBRICS project. There is this convergence among DPIs and artificial intelligence that we can also think of the other way around. Also, artificial intelligence properly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and also the way around artificial intelligence to DPI, particularly in terms of embedding AI systems in a broader sense, also consider automated decisions softwares. Last week, a Brazilian private bank, Nubank, announced that they're going to be the very first PIGs with embedded AI, exactly to integrate, to interpret clients' priorities and intentions, and also enable these automated transactions, and also using AI to detect risky data patterns and so on, but without an explicit risk impact assessment of this combination of AI and DPI. So it's something that we need to take a look in forward implementation of the brand new approved at the Senate AI regulation last week. And also concluding here, I'd like to provide a reflection on a broader view on digital literacy and financial literacy, this convergence that also can be pushed and enabled through DPI implementations and regulations. When I speak here about digital literacy, I'm speaking in a broader sense. Brazil developed BNCC, it's a national common curricular base that has among its main skills, competences, pillars, both critical thinking and digital skills. So not only being able to use a software or a digital tool itself, but knowing where this tool has been developed and who controls it is also key here. And also BNCC also encompasses different aspects of financial literacy, such as it mentions different times in the document, like exploring historical, social, and cultural dimensions of consumption, and so on. So there's also room for thinking of this convergence of these two already in place that can be also adopted in other countries and scenarios to converge this convergence on financial and digital literacy through DPI regulations. But for this to actually take place, financial DPI promoters should also be promoters of educational DPIs, right? We also launched a T20 policy brief specifically regarding the need of developing these DPIs for education, not treating them as just sectorial application of DPI, but actually as key to promote this just mentioned critical digital literacy and so on. And I have more here. Generator. Thank you, Luca.
Excellent, Ale. And so we can now directly pass the floor to our online speakers. First we have Ritul Gaur. Please, Ritul, the floor is yours. Can we have Ritul?
Hi, Luca. Hi.
Yes,
Hi,
we
hi,
can
Luca.
hear you
Hi,
very
Ale.
well.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well. Can we put also Ritul on screen? Can we put Ritul on screen?
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Is it there? Should I start my address?
You can start. We can hear you very well. Our remote participation assistants are trying to have you on screen as well. Yes, we can see you now very well. Thank you.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's unfortunate that I'm not there, but right there in the third row is my colleague Ibrahim. So if you guys feel that there is anything that I said which is wrong or controversial, please catch him, and I'm sure he'll have more answers. But so I think I'm going to start my address on something very interesting I came across on no, now X on X few days back. It was the co-founder of my first job think tank, who recently tweeted that, who recently X'd that I think there's a need for a new consumer rights movement. Consumers have become so disempowered that there's almost no way to seek redress. And public policy has forgotten the consumer. And with that, it is so great to be on a panel where we're actually talking about consumer and DPI in the same length and breadth. I've been in this world for over 2 years now, but haven't really come across this in the same breadth. So I'm going to broadly talk about DPI first, and then dive into what does Indian DPI landscape looks like, particularly UPI, and then what does it mean to be a consumer in that sense? So Luca and Ale both talked about the benefits of DPI. We've seen how it has in both Brazilian, Indian, Singaporean, a lot of African contexts. It has empowered users with giving them an identity. It has allowed them with the ability to transact in a fast and secure way. And most importantly, also allowed the storing and sharing of data and credentials to then avail a lot of other services. And unlike most other countries, India, Brazil, Singapore, etc., have done significantly well. But when we talk about India, it has not been an exactly easy journey, and a much remains to be done in our digital journey. To lay out what remains to be done, part of it, I think when we look at the Indian DPI story, we all know it works, and we've seen that well. But we don't know what happens the day it does not work, the day my transaction fails, the day my authentication fails. We honestly do not know what is the grievance redressal mechanism, because it's layered through so many things. There's the payment service provider, then there's an app on top of it, and then there's a grievances done by somebody else. So we don't really know what happens when this does not work. And I think it's a big learning for countries who are designing, who are just building out their systems. Think of it from get-go that your population has enough faith that when things do not work out to be, what really happens when it goes. So broadly laying out some challenges of UPI and what really does it constitute. UPI constitute 80% of digital payments in 2024 in India, with billions of dollars being exchanged. It is fantastic. There's a high amount of trust outside. There are ingenious solutions, which includes small voice box that pops up every time a small payment is made. But at the same time, UPI is also a financial crime hotspot. And to the extent that we don't even know what we're talking about here. There was a recent study by Dwara Research, a think tank in India, which highlighted the challenges in getting a grievance redress. And some of the findings were absolutely stark. Out of the 6 apps they surveyed, only four had a grievance redressal, in-app grievance redressal mechanism. And only one, and India is a huge country with many languages, and only 1 out of 4 had tutorials or FAQs in their native languages. So essentially, there's a lot of grievance redressal mechanisms out there, but only in English for a population that does not understand English. So some very interesting finding emerged. More men approach the grievance redressal mechanism than women. Apps almost have no support except in English, no vernaculars. All the FAQs are in English. Navigation issues. Grievance redress is hidden across multiple layers. It's actually very difficult to find where it is. It's not on your premium real estate where you can click and then actually go towards that. Documentation required. Sometimes the complaint mechanism is such that you can only lodge for a predefined complaint. You can't really write your issue. So you have to pick from what's out there. You can't really write. So often it does not even capture all the issues and the modalities of it. You can't do it via voice, you can't do it via text, etc. Also severely constrained. Some of these apps didn't even have a mechanism to track your ticket for the grievance that you had for. And now with this landscape, add on top of it that digital financial literacy is around 27% in India. UPI related frauds contribute to over 35% of the complaints to our National Crime Records Bureau. Can you believe it's 1/3 of our complaints to the National Crime Records Bureau is UPI related financial complaints? Incidents of domestic fraud in UPI rose by 85% as compared to the last financial year. So 85% jump. So and I think if you look at it, it's not just that the payments have become easier, the payment system has become sophisticated. It is that the fraudsters have become really smart. Like they can clone a screen, they can clone an app, they can let you click on a particular thing from far away. Every day, in fact, in my hometown, in a tier 3 city, I hear somebody losing money, etc. So this has become all too very common. Now, I think it would be unfair to not talk about solutions. So I think from a very broad point of view, the two overall objectives on financial sector regulations are provide adequate consumer protection and protection against systemic risk. So consumer protection would depend on the speed with which fraud is detected, which is extremely important, and at the speed at which judicial process or whatever resolution arbitration takes place to make it work. And clearly, there have been some steps in India's case which are working towards it. The central bank has integrated an ombudsman scheme, which has integrated all ombudsmen so that if any complaint which is unresolved within 30 days, they can take it up to the ombudsman. In the payment system vision lineup, they have also introduced something called ODR, online dispute resolution, so that people don't have to go to court for the smallest of the court cases, because court cases in India are humongous. They go on for years and years, and people don't really have an out if they actually get into a litigation affair. But sadly, much has not moved on this. There are a lot of other use cases for DPIs, as Ali was talking about. ONDC, which is essentially a big bazaar, has integrated online dispute resolution, but that has not happened in case of UPI. There are various platforms, etc., which is launched by different ministries to just track and report what kind of financial crimes are happening. There is a national helpline that has been launched. It's called 1930, where you can quickly report a fraud. And then there is a central bank has also launched a central payment fraud information registry, which essentially keeps a track of all the frauds and then circulates it across all network participants that this is happening. Some updates on this, that the 1930 helpline has been getting 67,000 calls every day. 67,000 calls for frauds every day. The central bank tracker of the different complaints, the dashboard, has over 1.1 million complaints on digital payment fraud, including for different channels. So I think there is some things which the state has been trying to do. There is no overarching, we don't have a data protection rules out yet. We have a legislation, but there's no rules out yet. So that hinders the consumer to actually avail that route. We don't have an overarching financial sector regulation, which actually protects the consumer at the end of it, but we have these small tidbits of schemes, etc., which allows the consumer to be protected. Now, if you were to ask me that what is it that the top 3 things that we should focus on in order to make consumer the focus of a robust financial DPI in India, I think the first would be work on ODR. Online dispute resolution is a very good mechanism to not go to court, but also find out a way out where the dispute can be resolved and consumer can get essentially a faster recourse to justice. Simplify user experience. I think all the apps, regardless of whichever app you use for UPI transaction, should have a similar kind of experience in reporting a grievance, a fraud or financial transaction misplacing. Because if every app has a different mechanism, it's very difficult for a large illiterate population, or not illiterate, but a large not financially literate population to go and resolve for that out. So make sure it is a consistent experience throughout all apps. And I think more importantly than not, which is where I think a role of a lot of other players come into the telecom, etc., improve fraud detection. If my way to actually identify and report fraud is easy, then if there could be tags, etc., if other entities can also loop in and make it a robust way that fraud detection becomes easy. Crowdsourcing of fraud detection, suspicious activities can be detected and tracked and reported. I think that could lead for a robust financial DPI with the consumer at the center. That's about it. Over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Ritu. Very interesting points, especially regarding the booming cyber crimes and frauds in UPI, which clearly is an issue that must be addressed with further and more seriousness. Now, speaking about redress in terms of how can consumers try to cope with this kind of unfortunate situations and more, we have Saroja Sundaram, who has been dealing with this and other internet digital literacy issues that can be also plugged into this discussion for some years. So please, Saroja, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luca. I think my colleague, my friend Ritul has covered most of the concerns that we are facing on the ground. And as he had rightly mentioned, there are several positive aspects to this, which has been, which was covered by him actually. So we recently did a study of around 2,000 consumers, users of digital financial services from the rural areas. So the findings were actually quite interesting because most of the people, even street vendors today, use UPI systems. So digital transactions that way has penetrated to the lowest level, and like everyone seems to enjoy using it because of its convenience. But then there are some challenges as well. As pointed out by Ritul, I think it is across the platform, and especially from rural areas, there are specific challenges, and most of the the country is the citizens are from these areas, and so it's very important for the regulator and the government agencies to actually look at the ground scenario on what is actually happening on the ground, how consumers are the regulations, the policies that they frame, how effectively it reaches the last mile is something that they need to assess, I feel, before they to assess, to actually see how they could strengthen implementation of their policies and their regulations so that consumers stand to benefit. Even the from the remotest area of the country stand to benefit. So, Luca, as you pointed out, in India, again, connectivity, as you mentioned, mindful connectivity, meaningful connectivity is very important, I feel, because network connectivity in rural areas appears to be a challenge. So UPI transactions, chances of double transaction, and then difficulty in getting the money back. All these are some of the challenges that we saw when we spoke with the consumers, because the internet connectivity is intermittent or very poor. So they have challenges there. And also the other concern, as Ritul pointed out, is about the redress mechanism. People don't know where to complain. Actually, even the first step as to where to go into the app, they know to make a transaction. So it's only like a QR code scan or just enter the number and just the transaction is through. But then to make a complaint, how to register a complaint, and how to take it forward in case someone helps them with registering a complaint, to take it to the next level in case they don't get a redress, what happens? And again, they don't have the content in vernacular language. So that proves to be a challenge. So especially from a country like India with multiple languages, it's very difficult for consumers actually. So that is another challenge that consumers don't know how to deal with. And digital literacy is very limited. So we need to have customized and tailor-made literacy programs for consumers. Only then it will be, and it should be a continued engagement. And only then consumers will know what they are up to and how they can get issues redressed. In fact, I wanted to suggest, suggest a few steps that should be taken to improve this situation, actually, from the various stakeholders. First is actually about accessibility and transparency. When we talk about redress mechanisms, they should be easy to understand and should be accessible to consumers, and transparency about the process, about the timelines, about the eligibility criteria, and all these should be readily available to the consumer, so that it builds the trust, consumer trust. And user-friendly, the platforms should be user-friendly. That is also very important. So consumers should be easily, readily able to file complaints, track the status of their case, and receive guidance. And any kind of complaint, they should be able to upload or inform someone about the. Not everyone will be familiar with the typing or writing. So they should be able to. There should be some other process, way by which they could actually record their complaint, so that they are, and they should have this multilingual support as well. And clear communication, actually provide consumers with clear communication about their rights, the steps in the redress process, and the outcomes should be available to the consumers. Similarly, timely and effective dispute resolution is very important. If that is not there, time-bound redressal, if it is not there, then it is going to be very difficult for consumers, which is what is happening today, unfortunately. And we need alternative dispute resolution also. Under the consumer protection law, we have mediation as an option for consumers to actually seek redress. So I think, and India, in the Indian government, the Ministry of Consumer Affairs is actively promoting mediation in all the consumer commissions, the consumer courts. Mediation centers are required to be made available so that consumers can get redress through mediation. Similarly, something like this online, some alternative dispute resolution mechanism should be available for consumers, so that they are able to quickly seek a redress for their issues. And compensation also. If the consumer is entitled to compensation or reimbursement, then that should also be processed quickly, so that they're not harassed further. They have already lost their money and they should not be harassed further. We do have certain regulations in place. It's not that there is nothing at all. We do have, when it comes to online transactions, there is the zero liability. There are situations where the consumer is totally responsible, limited liability of consumers. All these are there in place, but then it has to be time bound, whatever the redress mechanisms. They should not be further harassed, is what I feel. And I think the service providers, the financial institutions also have a role to play. They need to be actually more proactive to ensure that the citizens, if they face a problem, their issues are addressed. They should come forward to actually help consumers in such scenarios, instead of actually immediately going on the defensive. This is what happens. So this is a challenge that needs to be addressed. And ombudsman. So in India, we have this body. It's supposed to be an independent body, but unfortunately, it acts as an extended arm of the regulator. And so it's like not every consumer will be able to easily approach the ombudsman's office. So this is another thing. They have to be independent. They need to stay away from the regulator, and they should not be housed inside the regulator's office, which intimidates a common man, actually. So I think that is something that that we should have. They sit separately and they handle issues separately, so that consumers feel confident and trust the regulator, trust the ombudsman's office to go and register, escalate their complaint. You cannot register a complaint before the ombudsman directly. So you need to exhaust all the other avenues like approaching the branch or the service provider directly. And then there is this internal ombudsman mechanism as well, where they can escalate their complaint, and then as a next step, they can approach this integrated ombudsman who's available for the consumers. But then it's very important that they are independent so that there is no bias. And another important thing that I feel is very important is the monitoring mechanism that needs to be in place. I think it's very important to continuously assess the effectiveness of redress mechanisms by collecting feedback from consumers. Consumers, when I say consumers, the different category of consumers, urban consumers, rural consumers, businesses, the bigger companies, and also the small vendors on the streets. To everyone, we should be talking, and we should be taking feedback on a regular basis. These regular audits and monitoring can ensure that the system remains responsive to the evolving challenges and are proved to be consumer friendly. So yeah, so these are some of the suggestions I think I would like to state. And when it comes to digital literacy, I think there are several awareness programs that are happening, several awareness materials that the regulator has come out with, and it is available on their websites. And some programs happen haphazardly here and there. But I think we need to actually move from this situation to a more robust, more dedicated, customized digital literacy programs should be developed, targeting the different stakeholders so that consumers are aware. As Ritul mentioned, the frauds that are happening, like people are taken completely unaware. They don't even know what is happening, and just like that, they lose their money. Then it's a big struggle, and many a time you don't get your money back. This is the ground reality. So I think it's very important to see how we actually educate, at least to that extent. There are situations that go beyond control, but then there are situations where it could be the consumer's fault, and where we educate them and they know their rights as a consumer. So I think we need to organize these workshops and training programs, which should be a regular phenomenon. And of course, we have the online platforms today, social media, where we should be actually reaching out to consumers. And there are several other ways also, street plays and other for rural consumers, through those medium, board games and things like that, where we can reach out to school children, where we actually we educate them on digital literacy, and also engage through social media and community, as I mentioned, and also incorporation of real life scenarios. If we could give examples, real life stories on how people lost money, case studies, including them in our campaigns, so that people know actually how one could be cheated in this space. So this actually will help. Tailor-made literacy programs are very important for consumers to know, for them to understand what is the concern around the space and how they need to be careful. Digital lending is another major problem actually. Many people are losing, being threatened actually. When we were talking to consumers, especially women, they offer 10,000, 20,000 small money without any documents. So women who are in running small business, or for some family reason, for purpose, they go and take this money without informing any other family member. I happened to come across these two cases where this lady, in one particular case, this lady took the money, 10,000 rupees, small amount only. She borrowed this money without any papers for some personal use. Later, what happened was the fellow started threatening her, telling her that he'll be posting her photo on social media and all. And so he kept taking money from her, she paid up to 60,000 rupees for the 10,000 that she had taken. And then beyond that also, when he started demanding money, only then she realized that she realized she couldn't do anything more, and she went and told her husband about it, and then they went to the police, and these things happened. So I think this space needs to be regulated. It has to be addressed because there are many, especially women, many people who are suffering because of this digital lending problem. So yeah, with this, I would like to conclude, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. And I'm sure there will be questions or considerations from the audience. We have here people in the floor that have been with us for the entire workshop. So if we have any considerations, questions, or even personal experiences that you would like to share to understand to what extent DPI can be consumer-centric or are not, or even to bring examples from your own countries, this is the moment actually where you can do so. So if you want, if anyone in the audience here in the room wants to contribute to the discussion, please feel free to raise your hand and add your 2 cents or 2 rupees. Yes, sir. Yes, we have. Can we bring a mic to this gentleman here? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice discussion and the nice presentations. I really like the way both speakers have managed to frame the consumer centricity demand of DPI, and Luca, the experience of Brazil in terms of PIX as well is quite solid. Many countries in Africa are looking at the experience of PIX, which is, the public part of public-driven DPI development process, which is quite essential in terms of putting proper safeguards on time from the onset. Some countries are actually going deeper into the DPI development without proper safeguards being in place, policy and regulatory processes being in place. So PIX has a lot to learn from that, a lot to share from that perspective. One potential practice for consumer centricity of DPI in Africa, and I'd like to relate to the country that I come from, which is Ethiopia, in the process of identity development, right? What are the driving factors for ID development, which give it an extra momentum for consumer centricity, is the level of identity fraud available or identity fraud attacks that banks in the country were facing. The major challenge being the lack of digitally verifiable identification system in Ethiopia has led to the actual creation of a digital identification process. And the amount of money the banks were losing annually was quite huge, to the extent that it has driven them to get together and invest in the early enrollment technology that was supportive of the government's partnership, the government's plan for digital identity development. And this has actually been a sign of A, commitment, and B, a collaborative work between public-private partnership for DPI development. And it's a solid case. Now, still, it has a challenge of having a proper safeguard. But for me, it's a major indicator of consumer centricity, whereby identity fraud is not only affecting the banks, but also account holders and transactors. So thereby creating a very fertile ground to create a consumer-centric digital public infrastructure system. But the challenge being, and then this is something that I would like the other speakers to actually also address, is the fact that DPI approach needs to have a whole of government process. So usually there's a single track siloed approach of implementing DPIs without putting proper safeguards. And that's one of the major challenges ID systems are facing at this point in time. Payment systems are facing at this point in time. So there's a need to create integration. There's a need to create interoperability, but also there's a need to create from the onset, from the beginning at the design stage, issues related to safeguard. So for me, it's just a comment and a question. The first is the fact that yes, there are multiple examples of the consumer centricity from the design, from the intention of DPIs itself. But then again, there's a need to actually bring all these DPI components together, ID, payment, data, from the early onset onwards, to make sure that they integrate and work closely and in partnership. Yeah, thank you.
Those are excellent comments. Do we have any other here? Otherwise, yes, we have another gentleman here Yes, please go ahead. Introduce yourself. Yes.
My name is James Omadai. I'm from Bloggers Association of Kenya, and yeah, I'm from Kenya. I I just want to make a contribution. It's actually a comment. It's quite interesting that you're having this conversation about DPIs being consumer centric, because we have an opposite experience in Kenya, and that's what we've actually been trying to get the government to actually see basically the point of having something consumer centric, because what is happening is so for instance, the president will go out there and let's say go to Google or go to any IT company, etc., or maybe like one of the ministers is approached, and then they have what is called a top-down approach. So you just have a solution, just dump it on you, and it doesn't work for anyone. And then also something else, instead of going, let's say the Brazil way, where let's say the regulator comes up with an idea and builds it from the ground up, they just I don't know how to say this, but they just dump this thing that they don't know if it's going to work, and then now they start putting sort of clusters, as you go along. The whatever I don't know whether it's the gentleman or the lady who said that customer care and being able to have your issues sorted is one of the ideal ways of building a customer or rather consumer centric DPI. So when it's top down, it's even worse, because now when you think about it, they're actually using a system that they have not involved any of the stakeholders, and most importantly the public. And so what you have is just something that doesn't work. From from a general perspective, I feel like maybe with DPIs, and especially for countries that are starting to adopt this, like us, like Kenya, I feel like what you need to start with like policy. You have a policy in place, and then now build from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this excellent comment. And actually, it allows me to provide just a little bit of clarification. I want to make clear that the goal of the panel is to assess whether and how DPIs can be consumer centric, but it was none of the speakers' intention to argue that they are by default consumer centric. So this last comment is actually very useful to clarify that they can be. And I believe that probably the Brazilian experience is one of the closest to be consumer centric, simply because it is one of the most recent, and so it could learn also from the mistakes of other. I know that in Kenya you have M-Pesa. It is very similar to the Brazilian Pix, but it's also very different. And I also understand some of the difference maybe on how it has been proposed and implemented. So our colleagues from the remote assistance remind us that we have to wrap up. So I would like to give to my fellow panelists a final moment to provide their final thoughts, maybe some provocative remarks, final remarks in 1 minute, or some hope for the future. Feel free to use this last minute that you have at your disposal as you want. So maybe we can go with Ale and then Rito and Sraja.
Thank you, Luca, and thank you for the reflections as well. Quite quickly, definitely there's the Brazilian experience, the Indian experience. It should not be like just replicated elsewhere. Brazil has a long trajectory in terms of civil society engagement and digital rights and internet governance, indeed, multi-stakeholder and so on. And we need to think of the design of DPIs at least at 2 levels. One as this customization as the financial services provider level, but also at the architecture level. Pix is divided mainly into 2 ones, the instant payment system, what it was built in already existing financial infrastructure, and also the decentralized identifier, which enables the portability of keys and so on. But I don't have time to dig on that. And I also like to emphasize that PIX also has among its structure the forum PIX, the PIX forum, which is also a multi-stakeholder space for deciding, discussing the decisions upon the design. And appreciate again the time here. And take a look in the UN DPI safeguards that was launched this in September. It provide also interesting insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alesso. We can go to Ritu and then Suraj.
Hi, I just want to make one small point, and thank you, Ibrahim, for actually pointing that out about the safeguards thing. I think for any government looking forward to build, one of the most important thing is to build it in open. Every document, everything, if it's published in open, even if it's pricing, even if it's small tweaks in regulations, etc., as much as you can allow the documents to be out in open, you allow the civil society to analyze, criticize, etc., and then make the feedback box welcome and open. So I think build it open is something which is very critical. In India in 2014, they launched something called PLCP, which is pre-legislative consultation policy. For any legislation, any regulation, it has to be out in public for public comments for a minimum of 30 days. Otherwise, it cannot pass. So I think something like that, which if you're planning to build, because it's difficult to involve people like the scale of which democracies work in every small decisions. But if you can at least build it in open, I think you allow for a greater amount of transparency in the system. So yeah, that's it.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. This was a great experience.
Fantastic. Saraju, please.
Yeah. So I think we need to have an effective monitoring system in place, especially looking at vulnerable consumers, the concerns, like if you are going to have regular audits, then we will know where we stand in terms of, we in the sense the government agencies, the regulator, where they stand in terms of the implementation of their policies. And this will stand as a feedback for them to actually improve their system so that consumers stand to benefit. So yeah, this is what I think we need most.
Fantastic. And I think with this word of optimism and hope for the future, we can close this panel. Thank you very much to all the participants. Very good discussion, and hope you have an excellent IGF. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Tick, hey, hey. Tick, 1, 2, hey, hey. Hey, tick, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. Tick, tick, 1, 2. Hey, hey, tick, 1, 2. Tick, 1, 2, 1, 2. Tick, 1, 2. Hey, hey, hey. Tick, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, hey. Tick, 1, 2. Hey, 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 hey. Tick, tick, 1, 2. Hey, tick, 1, 2. Tick, tick, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, hey, tick, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, tick, hey, 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 tick, hey, 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 hey. Tick, tick, 1, 2.
Okay.
Can they hear me? Yes, can you? I think so.
Can you
Claire,
hear
can you
me?
say something? Yes, I can.
Oh, I can hear you and you can hear me. Perfect.
We're here. Great. We can start now. Thank you for being a little bit late, but technical issues. Okay, hello. We can kick off this. You have your mic. You're gonna be leading this session. I don't think you need that if you're talking. Yeah.
Okay.
Just try. Try.
Hello. Hello here.
Perfect.
Hello. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the floor is yours. You start. And we have also people online and everything is working. Okay? Ready? Perfect. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Good evening here in Riyadh. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone watching us. Thank you for joining to this section, and we're gonna have a very insightful section between the Pan-African Youth Ambassador for Internet Governance, Internet Society Foundation, and ISOCAM Alumni Group. Today I have here Atanase Bahazire, who is from DLC Youth IGF. I also have Clary Van Zwitan from Internet Society Foundation. Sorry Nasafa will be joining us, and I also have Ida from also the East African region. We're going to talk about AI for multilingual inclusion. And before we start, we're going to have more discussion, which is practical. And we have some youth also here that we want to engage them and include them in this section. With the opening aspect of this section, we've seen so many challenges of expanding internet access and its availability in local content across many languages. Whilst working towards this in advancing human rights and inclusion in a digital age, AI for multilingual inclusion, we also discussed how internet can be expanded through greater languages and inclusion in all aspects of our work. Through the use of multilingual AI system, we can engage digitally isolated population, people who are isolated from the internet in terms of language barrier, grant them equal access to information. In this turn, we want to improve digital literacy and education efforts in making internet content available to everyone. And this has been a conversation Internet Society Foundation is working on their various internet governance programs, and PAYAC2 also working on that in terms of 5 languages. It's been a very awesome time to welcome my speakers here, and I will give them just one minute for them to introduce themselves. So looking at the online, I have Clary here. Clary, if you can hear me, just a minute, just introduce yourself, then I will move to Atanase. Then the rest will join us. Ida too is there. All right, thank you.
So I'll go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Claire von Zwieten. I am the alumni specialist at the Internet Society. I have the wonderful job of working with our alumni, 2 of which are there on the stage today, and also Ida, who is also here. Thank you so much for coming to this session, and I'm very excited for this exciting talk about how we can create more internet access for people who are not speaking the dominant languages of the internet. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me move to Atanase.
Thank you so much. I'm Atanas Baizere, an Internet Society alumni, and I'm one of the facilitators of the Pan-African Youth Ambassador on Internet Governance. I'm an engineer by profession, and when it comes to the IGF ecosystem, I coordinate the youth IGF in the DRC. I'm very happy and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then Ida, if Ida is here. Ida. Okay. All right. So Ida will join us very soon, and we can start giving their remarks. I want to start from Atanase. You mentioned facilitator for Pan-African Youth Ambassador for Internet. Can you give a brief information about that? How multilingualism is focused on the training that you are doing at Pan-African Youth Ambassador for Internet Governance? Then we dive into the next question for Clary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selby. Okay, so basically, we have been seeing a rise of participation of different actors in the Internet Governance Forum and other Internet governance related activities. But we realized that there was a lack of meaningful participation from Africa. When we tend to look deeply into it, we realize that many African countries don't speak English, and non-English speaking countries, they tend not to be active in. So we tried to play our part in the solution, and we came up with this initiative of the Pan-African Youth Ambassadors on Internet Governance. Basically, it has 5 cohorts with 5 different languages. The target is to train 1,000 young people per year within 5 different languages, so 200 per language. We have 5 cohorts, one from the Arabic cohort, the Portuguese cohort, the Swahili cohort, the English cohort, and the French cohort. So what is very unique in this program is that we have introduced some African languages that are only spoken in Africa, and some other languages that, not widely spoken, so that we build capacity of the different participants of the different African youth, so that they understand the stakes of the internet governance, and then we guide them through mentorship so they can join these discussions and be able to participate, and also can contribute locally to different IGFs in their different countries or region. So briefly, that's what is about the Pan-African Youth Ambassadors on Internet
Okay.
Governance.
All right. Thank you, Atanasi, for highlighting on that. Clary, I want to ask you, want to move to you. Before people, the fellowship, the ambassadors of Internet Society could come out as an ambassador. I don't know. I know that they don't just come out like that. There's training. And I've seen some couple of training in also different languages Internet Society is working on in terms of closing that kind of barrier within languages and internet governance and other trainings. Can you also highlight on what Internet Society Foundation and Internet Society as a whole is doing in terms of training in multilingualism within the world? Thank you.
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. And at the Internet Society, as a global organization, we are committed to making sure that the internet is for everyone. That really is what we are striving for. And that is our goal. That's how we think. And the internet cannot be for everyone unless everyone has access to it and can read it. And of course, you cannot read the internet if you're not speaking the language of what is written. So at the Internet Society, we really do our best to include as much interpretation as possible when we communicate with our community. We do so in Spanish, French, Arabic when we can. And we're very committed to making sure that whenever we are speaking with our community or speaking with people beyond our community, we are providing them access to be able to understand what we are saying in the country, in the language they are most comfortable in. So we really try to walk the walk when it comes to multilingualism and the internet by providing as many interpretations options as we can do.
Okay, all right, thank you. Alejandro is also here, but today this session is not going to be panel discussion. It's going to be a group discussion as we are here. Before we go to the next discussion, we've seen this, that there are some AI language tools and AI system that is coming that we are training on large language models. I want to ask in the room so that we have the conversation with you before we come back to also that. In terms of language, communication with some of the AI tools like Google Bard, ChatGPT, which is very common. Have you tried communicating with these AI language models, AI tools with your local language, and how does it look like? Are you still limited to stuck with English because it can provide only the answers in English? Have you tried different languages with this AI tool? So if you have that knowledge, you can share with us. Yeah. You mentioned your name, your country, and your organization you are representing. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Miriam from Kenya. I'm an ambassador in Payag under the Swahili cohort. So personally, I've interacted with ChatGPT. I use it all the time. But for Swahili, it's a bit tricky because even the basic like greetings, I'm supposed to ask you habari yako, and then the response is njema. So for the AI, it really hallucinates. Gives you wrong answers, and then you have to tell it, no, that is the wrong answer. And then the next time I ask you habari, you respond with njema. So for the Swahili, it's not really that good, but it's really doing well. Maybe not for the common, because greetings are different. Maybe in Kenya and Tanzania, they're a bit different, but generally Swahili, it's okay for me.
Okay, all right. So, okay, we have
My name is Abdurrahman, and I'm from Lahore, Pakistan. We have worked on with ChatGPT in Urdu and Punjabi. Urdu is a bit good, but in Punjabi it have some issues. We're trying to build a platform for local, uh, like daily wage owners like plumbers and those people to make their resume by speaking their Punjabi accent or Punjabi language. So that's a bit hard thing for OpenAI right now. That's my take on it.
okay, all right. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Grace Ngijoy from Cameroon, and concerning local languages it's a little bit complicated with our country because we have more than 200 languages, local languages. So, but actually there's a young Cameroonian who's working on it, but he specialized on common languages with a youth with a at least with some majority like Ewondo, Basa, and Bamileke, because we have more people that come from that side. So, but it's not yet effective. But at least with the news that we are having from him, it's something that you can help us a lot in terms of communication with our local people.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Atanase, let me do we have anyone again? Okay, so we'll come back to another question. Atanase, let me go to this. We've seen the aspect of looking at how AI has been shifted among local languages. We have, you mentioned Payak has 5 languages, Swahili, Arabic, Portuguese, English, and French. English is common, so that's the general that most AI language models are trained on. Now, I want to ask, and the same question will go to Clary, then Clary also explain perspective from the ISOC's side. We want to understand that in terms of this digital language divide, because we see there's a vast difference from English to the other 5 languages. How can we ensure that there is an equal AI technology access for all speakers in all languages?
It's a great question. And I think that that points to one of the most fundamental questions and challenges that we face is having data to train on. Is so much of the content on the internet is in English. And when AI systems need data to train on, many of the data sources they use are in English. So having ample data sources of other languages will be instrumental to making sure that we're able to use AI for multilingual inclusion on the internet. And I think that until we're able to gather enough data about every other language that we want, we'll be able to use the internet way more accessibly. But it's the biggest hurdle is really having LLMs being able to be trained on this data. So until we have more access and more content, we won't be able to do it.
Okay, all right. Atanase?
Thank you so much. Let me just give a bit of context. I told you I'm an IT engineer by profession, and there is some stuff we don't understand about AI. AI, basically, we say AI, artificial intelligence. Basically, it's the ability of the machine to mimic what the human brain can do, the task we can do. And we have seen a wide hype of AI now with the LLMs, the language models. And we think that AI is something that is just coming now, but we have been having AI systems from long ago, and they are still developing. And something Claire just mentioned, very important. For us to have AI models, we need to have data. It's just like a human being. For you to start speaking, you need to listen. After listening, okay, you understand, you learn, then you can speak, then you can deliver. It's the same with AI. It has to learn from the data and then deliver. So there is this, when it comes to multiple languages, and there is this divide we have, that we think many of our languages are not documented, and that because they can only deliver, AI systems can only deliver from the data they've got. There is an issue now we have in our different communities now. We think when you use you publish content in your local language, you feel like many people won't see it. And so you can speak French, you can speak Swahili, you can speak Wolof, but you will go to English because you feel like that's where you'll get a wider audience. But then we create content on English, and that data is going to feed English models, and it will help generate AI models in English. So one of the things I used to tell people is, if you feel like there is this disparity, the only way we can solve it now, as of AI is not that far, it's still, okay, the hype is still new, and we can document our local perspectives on the internet. So it's about the data we put on the internet. So when you create content, you can make videos in your local language. You can publish articles in your local language, and that will help feed these models. One other thing, like we have seen use cases in countries like Rwanda in Africa, where they've managed to create a model that's they can ask the AI any question related to legislation, and it will give them answers and references, like this is in this bill, in this law, and is under which article. So what is happening is that they've got all their legislations in their local languages, but they were in paper-based. So what they've tried to do is to create that data. They supported young entrepreneurs, actually young students, young startups, with hackathon and competition, and tell them, so you have to, build a data project where you take these local bills and you digitalize them, first of all, because that's the first point. You get them online. That's the second point. And then within the data, how can I say, within the data curriculum, within the data line, you need to have the data. Then there is what they call data cleaning. Some of the terminologies you see, they are not accurate. So they used to review that data, cleaning it to make sure it's accurate and can go to this platform. And after they've got the data on internet, now they can start training the models on that data. And trying in machine learning, we used to say accuracy of your model. So you're going to train your model, but sometimes it won't respond accurately. Most of the time, even we see sometimes ChatGPT that is really big can't respond accurately. So what we do is, someone was talking about, you ask a question and then the AI can't reply, but then you tell it the answer, and then next time when you ask it, will respond with the good answer. So that is one of the three types of AI, machine learning. The first one is, you give the answer. You say, this is a tomato. You give a picture of a tomato, and you also tell it, this is a tomato. So tomato. The other model is, you give a picture of a tomato, you don't say anything, and then it will tell you, okay, this is a tomato, based on what it has got on internet. The other way is, you give it a picture of a tomato. It tells you it's an orange. You say, no, this is not an orange, this is a tomato. It's going to save the new data. Next time when you ask, to be more accurate. And this is actually the best way of learning. The same as our children, like you tell, no, this is not good. So next time, if I go this way, I may fall. This is not good. So next time is going to do it the proper way. So that's the same thing with AI. And when it comes to multiple languages, it's that the only way we can build strong AI models in our languages is by training it with the data we have. And so I really encourage us when in your usual life, when you want to do your work and you feel like you can do it in a non-English language, do it. It's important, and we definitely will need at some point this very statement.
All right. Thank you. So, Atanasi, you made a very good point. I'm interested in some part, but I will still come back to you later. Let me see if Ida is online and it can unmute. You see, with the AI perspective, it also starts from the literacy aspect of AI. We can feel that there is a gender disparities within the AI and also the multilingualism, whereby maybe most females can speak very good and well understand their local languages. But the fact that these tools cannot be connected to their languages so that they can navigate the use of AI too. So it becomes very dividing when we are talking about AI. If Ida is there, maybe you can ask me, what do you think that we can do to close the gender disparity when it comes to the multilingualism and the use of AI? If Ida is not, maybe Clary can talk on that for us, because I know Internet Society also promotes gender equality and that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I don't think Ida's able to speak, so I'll speak on her behalf. But the Internet Society is deeply committed to bridging the digital divide, and including women in the internet space is a huge part of that. So we really are committed to making sure that women have access to trainings and they're able to gain all of the opportunities of the internet the same way. And a lot of that has to do with making sure that women have access to training, women have access to mentorship. There are a lot of studies that show that women who go into technical fields but don't have a mentor are less likely to complete whatever training they're doing and less likely to succeed in that field. So I think it's one of the issues that kind of piles on each other. So we need women in ICT, and we need so they can mentor the younger fellows who are coming in and need a woman to help guide them through that process, because it is different to be in a male-dominated field like the technical community really is. And something else I want to mention that you mentioned before is that AI is great for the digital divide because it helps bring some people up, but it also very deepens it, because if you're in an area where your language is not represented on the internet, largely because you don't have like very good access in your area, you're not going to be able to use the benefits of AI either. So it compounds on itself very quickly, just as the issue of women in ICT does. And women do bring a lot of value and perspective to the field that is very necessary to keep it moving forward. And I look forward to even more organizations beyond just the Internet Society and PIAG working to bring more women into the field.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. And PIAG, we also promote gender equality. So we make sure that the selection of people to learn about these new language models and multilingualism, we tried as much as possible to get more people. Atanasi mentioned that Rwanda, as a country, has done a policy AI chat whereby people can get information on that. Now, Atanasi, to get back to you on that, and also as an engineer, because there are some also technical stuff I need to ask you so that we all learn. I want to go back to my people because it's an engagement we are doing with them. Do you think that, what has your country been able to do to develop maybe AI in terms of AI and multilingualism content? Has your government or your country been able to develop something out that you think that maybe the future? Because I quite remember on the Arabic side, I was hearing that there are some training models that they've been trained on data set. But is it for the government? And can someone share insight on the prospective country? Then we can come back to discussion to see what can be done. As Clary was mentioned, that beyond PIAG and ISOC, we can get other organizations to on board. So if anyone has contribution or question, what their government has been done, yeah, in terms of multilingualism.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Vlad Ivanits. I'm the youth ambassador of this year of the Internet Society, and I'd like to share my experience because I'm originally from Russia, and I know that we have like the local company which is quite big, like the big tech company Yandex, which is also working on the LLM model, and it is quite popular. I would say probably not only in Russia but also beyond the country. And they really work hard on creating the competitive system. But they actually have some problems they encountering right now, and they said the internet lacking enough resources on the exotic languages, as they call it, and they're really worried that they will not be able to create the sufficient tool for the AI tool that will be based on these languages. And actually, they also say that they're running out of Russian resources, and it applies mostly to the high-level resources, because yes, you can find a lot of information online, but is it like qualitative enough? Like, can you really use it to build an effective model based on this? So they doubting this. And I think this is the question that should be addressed as well and discussed among us. Like, how can we encourage the local communities to produce better quality of the texts, and how we can empower them just to use AI systems and not be afraid of using it on their language, on their own like local language. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Very nice question, because that was the next question I was coming to also delve much into in terms of the culture, the dialect, and other aspects related to AI. As someone is saying that I greeted AI in Swahili, but the response is not as much as expected. So we see that the AI languages, because it has not been trained in Swahili, the culture and the dialects and the modalities within that kind of language is being changed. And as my fellow ambassador is also saying that in terms of losing the quality of data, because we believe that the communities have a lot of local content they can produce. But what I also see is that we see a lot of disconnection between the rural people and how they can bring that down, because people are not also connected. They don't have internet access. They don't have access to mobile. So the content creation in local language is also limited, and we can also look into that. Can I also have any other perspective in terms of some countries which are doing a work like how Rwanda is doing in terms of policy aspect, where people are giving, the government is supporting AI multilingualism or promoting local content through AI? Is it some innovations that the youth have been able to brought board? Then we can move it to the next question for our speakers. Okay. Yeah, Clary has a something to share. Yeah. All right, Clary.
So I'm based in Amsterdam, but I don't sound like it because I spent most of my life in the United States. And there has been some amazing work done by the Navajo tribe, which is a tribe indigenous to the United States. And their language is disappearing. People, as new generations are growing up, they're not learning Navajo the same way their parents or grandparents did. So there has been a huge push among young people in the region to make sure that their language is protected through AI. So they're helping feed large language models through the documents and the text that they have to make sure that people who are learning Navajo in school are able to use ChatGPT in Navajo when they want to ask about their assignments, or if they want to know something about their cultural history, they're able to ask it in their native language. So, and because of that, I mean, language is so intrinsically connected to culture. So when you lose so much of your language, you end up losing your culture in parts as well. So I give a lot of credit to the Navajo Nation and the work of their young folks in making sure that their language is protected as generations go on and the schools in that neighborhood no longer teach that language. So that is one example of a community around the world that's using AI to make sure their language is not only preserved, but is usable and has effective use in the coming centuries, as it's probably going to happen that their schools no longer teach it.
Okay. All right, Clary. Let me come back to Atanasi. you mentioned that even in software engineering, you see that the data that we feed in AI is not that much in terms of multilingualism, and also the sources that we get those data, quality of data, as such. Even the language model in terms of develop a local content on AI models, do you think that there is an open source software that has allowed that we can have that multilingualism in that, in terms of development, from your perspective?
Thank you so much. Very good question. Actually, it's very quick. You know what? These big AI models, we know they are developed in California. So, what do you expect someone who is developing this system in California to put pidgin? How? So, the idea here is innovation. And the only way we can innovate is by building our own systems. Yeah, many of these basic source codes are open source, like OpenAI. At the basis, it was open source. There is at the Emirates in Dubai, one research university is working on AI, if I recall. FA is like Faras. I don't recall the name in Arabic, but so basically what they're trying to do is to build a strong, because at least they've got enough data in Arabic, but then they try to build a strong AI model that is first based in Arabic. Now it has English, it has some other languages, but it was first based in Arabic. So you see, it's promoting their own perspective. So what I can say, if we want multilingualism, it's all about innovation. We need to build our own systems, and we have many of these resources. Like education in the past, it was all about going to big universities and you know, learning all these big opportunities. But now through the internet, as Claire was saying, the internet is an enabling tool, and through the internet we can learn some of these things. Many of the software engineers you see today, they will tell you it 90% of their skills, they didn't learn it in university. So that is it. The internet is enabling us to do wonders. And so I can encourage, if you feel like you're interested in one of these fields, you'll find resources on the internet. Go on. You can start. There are many open source, even Gemini, the previous Google Bard, has a level that is open source that you can take and build it on something. We have a Congolese boy who tried to build on Gemini a certain model that, okay, um, our in our country the traffic can be terrible. So he's trying to see building on Gemini. So he doesn't really build the data set by himself, but he's building on the open source AI to take it on our own traffic now and try to see if we can find solutions to, you know, solve that particular problem. And it can happen. I'm hopeful that by the 2 or 3 years, they will be able to come up with a strong solution. So that is one example, some of the examples of the people are trying to leverage the open source resources. Another thing I could say is innovation is something, there is also this culture of loving what you do. I've seen a lady who studied economics in university, went to an MBA, but at some point I was asking her advices in code. She decided to start coding, and now she's very good. She's very good, and ended up some point learning a new language, and I'm like, oh, she knows this very well. It's not like she started a curriculum in tech, but she got access to you know, different resources, and now she's good at it and she can do great. So I'm encouraging people, if you feel like you have the interest, you do what you can and make sure you document your local perspectives, because that will really help in this inclusion, in this diversification. There is one thing, maybe when we talk about multi-language IDN, we call it technically IDN. It's non-Latin scripts on internet. Just a quick example. When you get on your email inbox, an email that is starting, I don't know, maybe let's say in Amharic, it's a name at another script in Amharic dot something, you will definitely, when you see it, you will feel like it's a spam. First thing you'll be like, what script is this one? You'll be like, no, this is a spam. But we are talking about multi-language. So that these other, we now have domain names that are in Arabic, in Russian, like even the Russian TLDs, they have a version that RU, they have a version in Russian. The same in many other countries. In Egypt, they have one in Arabic. We have some other one in Chinese. So sometimes when it comes also to multilingual, it's also about accommodating scripts that are non-English. And this technically speaking, it's a challenge to developers. So if many of the developers, that if you don't really increase the budget to accommodate this, they feel like it's an extra work. So there is this spirit of wanting to go global. You see, I have an e-governance platform I'm developing, and you want to people to apply for visas in Guinea or in Djibouti. Doesn't you speak English or you use Latin script, but someone who is using non-Latin script, this start from left to right. So you see the email instead of let's say Atanas at gmail.com, it will be .com, gmail at Atanas. And technically it's possible. They do exist. But then for me as a developer, I need an extra layer of work to accommodate this kind of of emails, of addresses on my platform. So but when I have an ambition to go global, I can say I was talking about the e-governance. Some people will come to apply for visa to go to Djibouti, but your platform only accommodates scripts that are in English, in they call the Latin script. Then someone who is from Bangladesh and is coming with I don't know, Bengali script, how will he apply? His email is just in that specific script. How would he apply? Would use your system because he can't even log in because it has to. You need to have a different email. So, but when you want to go global, you will be accommodating this kind of technology. You say maybe now we don't have many users who are not from our country, but we expect in the next years we'll be having more people. So you design your systems with this inclusion in mind. That will really help us to get to the level of multi-language that we want to be to. Back to you, Fifi. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Atanas. Before you were saying that AI, and also Clary mentioned, without regulation from the perspective government, AI cannot be allowed to work functionally as how it's supposed to work in every country in terms of the multilingual promotion. Let me come to my people. If anyone have a question so far, then we will just wrap up with the last questions and answers to talk about in terms of AI regulation. Then we will just wrap up with a session. Do we have any question online or in the room or? Okay.
Well, I believe that to improve the language equity involves addressing different parts of the representation of it. So I
Excuse me,
grabbed here
can
some
you
points. That
mention your
I-
name and your?
Sorry?
Can you mention your name?
I'm Kenley Kosa from Mozambique.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So I believe that to promote this language equity, I have some points here that I grabbed that could actually help to have these kind of all the cultural languages to be involved in this. So I have here by promoting multilingualism, which is encourage the learning and use of multiple languages in school and communities. I have here actually in Chase language access, which is ensure that the public services provide materials and support multiple languages. I have one more here, which is increase the representation of it. That is to promote the diversity in language and representation in literatures, media, and in academia. So just with these points, I believe that they can bring the language equity for all of us around the world.
All right. Do you have
Point.
any question too? Yeah. Clary, what do you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to share that I really like that point that the audience member posed because representation is such a big part of this. And when you have a group of people who are building a model that is supposed to be for the whole world to use, it is still being created in the context of the model builder's culture and language. So when we don't have people building models from their cultural and linguistic perspective, that means they're always going to be adapting to the other side. So as we're talking about us adapting to different addresses such as Amharic and the way that they would be reading differently, it's important to recognize how long they have been adjusting to us. So I just want to take a second to highlight that there are many people in the global minority who are, or the global majority, who are not able to use these systems the way they would like because it wasn't developed in their context. And that requires way more representation in academia, way more representation in the technical fields. So we have more cultures and more languages involved in creating these kinds of models. Thank you.
All right. Any question again? Okay. We have two people there. Okay. So from Abenet, then we go to Miriam.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. My name is Abena Sintayo from Ethiopia. So the session title, it says AI for multilingual inclusion is mostly essential and inspirational for the country like Ethiopia because Ethiopia have more than 80 nations nationally live together and also more than 80 nations, 80 language will be spoken in that area. So my question is that within 80 language, more than 80 language, there is minority speaking language and also the majority speaking language will be found in that place. So within the context of internet governance, promoting digital equity means ensuring different ethnic and linguistic groups are not left behind technological advances. So my question is that how can AI drive tool be tailored to support just particularly for undeserved or minority language speakers? Thank you.
Okay. Clary and Atanase, are you going to answer this first? So let me just also add on top of it's a very good question asking because for Clary mentioned that internet society currently focus on Spanish, Arabic, English, then maybe French. So these are when you take maybe let's say Central of Africa, we could see that we have about 5 or more countries who speaks French. When you come to West Africa, let's say my country, Ghana, Nigeria, other countries also speak English. When you go to the North Africa, Egypt, Libya, and other Morocco, they speak Arabic. So they are very okay with that. Within East Africa, Swahili is very dominating among Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and stuff. But even in Uganda, what I have experienced is that it's not that kind of basic language on there. They also have their own language. Now, Ethiopia is part of the East Africa, but they also have their own language that they are speaking. Now we are focusing in terms of when we group Arabic, French, Portuguese from Mozambique, Sao Tome, Angola, Cabo Verde, they are speaking Portuguese, but sometimes it's quite tricky and very different. These are group. So these are what he is classified as major languages because when you pick Spanish, you can get about 5 or more nationalities that speak Spanish. When we take off French, you can see even in Europe, Africa, other countries is there. When we take off English, it's a very universal common language everywhere. So we are working on that. But there are some countries which have different language that they speak apart from English, which is they are also a national language that most of them are speaking. which means that we are not considering that as an inclusion because it is a minor language. And most focus are okay, getting people who can get about 5 to 10 countries who speak this language. So he's asking that based on that inclusion that we are talking about, are we also going to look out for these minor languages? Maybe let's say one country is also maybe about 2 million people in the country or 20 million people are speaking the same language, but it's a minor language because no other country is speaking the same thing. So he want to understand that inclusion. So Atanasi, you can go, and then after that, Clary will also give the thought what Internet Society is also trying to do.
Thank you so much. Very good question, actually. I want to give you a perspective here. We have European countries like Slovenia, like Romania, and so on, who have a population of, less than 5 million people, but their languages are on Google, on OpenAI, and everything. And they have a strong foundation in their online presence. In the reverse, there are some countries, there are some languages like the Wolof, which is widely speaking more than more than 3 African countries. We have like the Hausa is spoken in more than 4 countries, and with like around 200 million people speaking the language. But if you're talking about main language in the sense of the population that speak Wolof may be bigger than the population that speak the Romania, blah, blah, blah. So the idea is here is not only, it's not really about the language itself, but it's about how you document your own language. So that what I was saying again, I encourage you to document your languages. The other thing is, after documentation, there is connectivity. At some point, Claire talked about it. There is a case in India, like 10 years ago, they were at the same level as many of the African countries, but they've got a solution. They have what they call a network of connectivity, fiber, and other alternatives. So the country is interconnected. They have the infrastructure in place. And we have seen when the infrastructure is there, the connectivity is there, their e-commerce is very high, is very highly raising. They are digital literacy. When you go to platforms, like you go to YouTube, if you want to cook, among the 10 videos you see, you find one Indian. You go to online platforms that are not the big one. If you want a certain thing, you find one. So the mobile banking and mobile money is widely used there. Why? Because the connectivity was there. And then definitely they will document, they will do business, they will try to do their agricultural activity helped by the internet because the connectivity is there. So I believe connectivity is very important for us to at some point get this because these applications are on the top of connectivity. We need to have connectivity, and what is the work of the Internet Society, actually trying to empower communities and build community networks whereby a community by their own, when they feel like marginalized, they don't have the big ISPs, don't find business there, they can build their own access to the internet from their own, and by there they will be able to leverage all the benefits that come with connectivity. So that is one of the things that when you have the connectivity, definitely you document your perspective. And when you document we have the data and we can build AI models. We can build much more things.
Okay. All right. So, Clary, we are about to close because we have 4 minutes. Maybe 1 minute or 1.5, you can take this. We've seen Internet Society as an international organization, which we have it in various countries. Looking at collaboration, Internet Society is doing their part. Now, can you give us an understanding, because we have the government, industry, academia who do research in terms of, as Atanaso was saying, that there's some country that they did a research to see that, let's say India, we have to connect them first. And when we connect them, they can create the content on their local languages or even other languages. Now, the government, industry, academia has a role to play. and we all understand that we cannot do that without innovations and stuff. What do you think that in terms of collaboration, multilingual AI language development, what can we do? And you can share the perspective that all these organization, multi-stakeholder organization can do, and what Internet Society is doing to also support that, and what do you think that others can learn from that? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a great question. And I would like to start by saying that while we only cover those languages, the Arabic, Spanish, French, and English in our courses, we have over 100 global chapters around the world that are working with their local communities to try to solve their internet challenges, whether they have access or if there's regulation that is harmful to the internet. They are able to do all of their work in their local language because of that local component to it. So while we are official for our trainings is only those four, we really do in our broader community communicate in a much broader variance of languages. And of course, multilingualism in AI will make the internet much more accessible to everyone. You can't have AI without the internet. So we have amazing projects at the Internet Society which aim to connect the unconnected. We know that the remaining 2.8 billion are going to be the hardest to connect. So we're doing the best we can and working with amazing partners around the world to connect those communities to the internet, help give them training so they can continue to maintain their internet. And then beyond that, we're able to give them the skills to be able to communicate on the internet in their local language, so there is greater representation. So it's a process. And as one organization, we only do what we can, but we hope that with the power of our chapters, our lovely alumni like you two, people who are in our courses and our fellowships, and just our greater community are able to help support us in that mission of making sure that all communities are connected to the internet so they have the ability to use their local content online.
Okay, all right, thank you. Does anyone have a question? So we are about to close, so they will say their final words. And Atanase, in your final words, just 1.5 minutes, you can also highlight on what we can do to improve AI development and research in terms of collaborating to advance AI in multilingualism. Then we will just, okay, yeah.
Okay. Should I present myself again?
Anyway.
Okay, it's Grace from Cameroon. Okay, as an ambassador for Payak, I have a question. Atanes mentioned about we document our languages. Can you explain how can we do it? Like, okay, from Cameroon, how can I help my fellow, or how can I help my, yes, the young people to understand that, okay, we need to gather our document. What should they do concretely to gather those documents?
Okay, thank you so much. Very good. Quickly, we've been having in the past libraries or easily what you can do, like let's say personally. Do you know your grandfather? Do you know their father and something? But if you reach out to some of your family, you can be able to gather specific data about your lineage or your lineage from, I don't know, some generations. And, you know, that is a valuable data you can't find anywhere else. So you'll be able to generate a certain information that nobody else can find in the world. And definitely your grandchildren, they'll find it as a resource. You get it. So there are other solutions are like we used to have our traditional musics. Most of the time during weddings, you see people singing all these musics, but now we are tending to forget all of them. But if you find you have them, you can say, I have a collection of old music, I'm going to have them, and you can upload it on a certain streaming platform. That would be data that people will be able to leverage on, and when people will be wanting to learn later on, they can build on that one. So we don't have time. I think if you need some more information from
it's giving, so we have some grants, and I can tell you that there are some projects that are digitalization of libraries. So you can take a look and you can do, because you are not alone. There are many people on this. So, and sometimes the issue is that you don't know what to do, or you know what to do, but you don't have the funding to do it. So the Internet Society also helps you with this. So just for you to know that there are many people doing the same, trying to do that, and we can support you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I was saying, yeah, if you want to learn more definitely about Payag, about the Internet Society or some of the technical questions, we can definitely meet later on after this session and discuss informally, because we don't have time now. So my parting remark, I would say, when we want to build AI and inclusion multilingualism in AI, what we need is innovation, and innovation will come by creating our own solutions to our own problem and trying to solve our own problems actually in using the digital technologies. Some of the our countries are experiencing, I don't know, flood or some other like volcanoes in my country, and so there is a perspective that no one else have experienced. So you can also create a solution that no one else have created. That's when innovation come into place too. Innovation is very important, and content creation and data collection. So we need to document. The internet is already there. We need to put on things. So document your expertise. Document your life in a way that it can help the coming generation. Then there is one thing I was saying. There are challenges, but we need to be part of the solution. So there have been challenges when it comes to AI, when it comes to connectivity and all other aspects. So the only thing I can advise is let's try to be part of the solution, to include our languages, part of the solution to make ethical and inclusive AI solutions.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Atanasi, for that. And Clary, your final words, then we close.
My final words are thank you so much for everyone coming to this session. The internet is for everybody, but not everybody has access. So I think it's important that we have conversations like this on how we can use new and innovative tools to extend the reach of the internet and extend the accessibility of the internet. And I am so thankful to Atanase and Abraham, Fifi Selby, and being here and helping us guide through this conversation. And if you would like to hear more about how you can get more involved, I really encourage you to go to Alejandra, who will raise her hand. There she is. And she can tell you more about our amazing empowerment programs, which will train you to be the internet leaders of tomorrow, just like the two brilliant men who are on that podium.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Clary. And thank you, wonderful people, for joining. I have a gift for everyone, so no one should leave. We have a gift for everyone for this section, joining this section. Yeah, so our time is up, and we thank you for joining. And we thank Alejandra for also supporting this program. If you have a final word, just 30 seconds, then we can all leave. And we appreciate you for joining. We are very happy for this conversation. Thank you.
So just thank you. I want to say thank you to all of you. And this is an example of what we want to do at the Internet Society. We just give them tools, knowledge, some kind of like a program that it's from 6 months or to a year. And that's it. That's what we do. The rest is coming from them. They are the stars. So that's what I'm telling you now. We need you. So we are talking about multilingualism. We need people like you to go there to understand that if we don't move and if we don't act right now, it doesn't matter that we have like fundings, we have programs, we have support. At the end, your languages are going to die if you are not supporting them and leaving it. So think about it. You need to put all the things that you have online, defend your languages, and use all the tools that we have, like AI, to be sure that all these language live and they have future for our kids and on the future that we have. And as I said, everything is always depending on us. We are the power here and the internet needs us. So thank you so much. And thank you, the great speakers that we had. Please a round of applause. Thank you.
Then we are done. So just have a seat. Then I will just give you. Is it? Yeah. We will have a picture. So.
If you can hear us, can you switch?
Tick, 1, 2. Tick, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, 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 hey. Tick, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, 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 hey. Tick, 1, 2. Hey, 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 hey. Hey. Tick, 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 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, hey. Tick, 1, 2, 1, 2. Tick, 1, 2. Tick, 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 1, 2.